to episode 7 of Danny B Speaks the podcast. I am, of course, Danny B. Thank you all for tuning in once again. I really appreciate it. I can't say that enough. Thank you to people who have been giving me feedback and everything. It is definitely being taken in account too. I really appreciated someone letting me know about the sound, that my voice is, a little low at times, and I've been trying to work that out. I'm getting a couple more things to make this more studio quality, so that will be coming, but I did up the volume on the mic, so please let me know if this is better. As well as somebody asking about SoundCloud, I really do want to put my podcast back on SoundCloud, but here's the deal. SoundCloud only allows you to upload a certain amount of hours per month. This is with the free plan because I'm already investing enough money into this, and everywhere else that I have my podcast on is free to upload, so I'm a little torn between upping my plan on SoundCloud to pay monthly. I'm still thinking about it. See, I'm doing one show every week, and my shows go between 45 minutes to maybe an hour and 5 minutes. They vary. If I do 3 one-hour shows, that's my upload for the month. And if something happens, like when I tried to upload one before, it rejected, it still counted it as an upload, even though it still counted it as an upload, even though it didn't go through. But the second time I did it, it went through, and there was my 3 hours for the month. So I'm still debating on that. So don't look for it on SoundCloud. Another alternative, if you don't have any apps on your phone like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play Music, where the podcast is, you could also listen to it on my website. I have a player on the website where it should be mobile friendly as well. All you gotta do is just go to DannieBSpeaks.com, and it's right there on the front page, and it's supposed to be mobile friendly. I hope it is. Let me know. I haven't checked it out yet. Another alternative is YouTube. I'm still putting the podcast on YouTube. The only thing is that it won't have the background music that I use. And the reason for that is because if it catches you know how the copyright thing is. So if it catches a little piece of a song that is copywritten, they'll give me a strike. I've been lucky so far getting away with it, but I did get a warning. And there were a couple appeals that I did win. However, it is on YouTube, but it just doesn't have the background music. It's just my beautiful voice. So there's that. So that's what's going on with all that. As I mentioned, I'm still in the process of getting more equipment to make this more studio quality. That's basically just where we're at right now. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hope you enjoy all the shows. But let's just go ahead and get right on into episode 7. So in news to piss me off this week, Nathan Phillips, who is an elderly Vietnam veteran, but also, most importantly, an indigenous Native American, was taunted by a group of private high school Catholic white boys. Let's just talk about this real quick. So the video that went viral was Nathan Phillips playing a indigenous chant on his drum, and he was trying to diffuse a situation that we weren't aware of at first, but I'll get to that in a second. All you see in this viral video is a bunch of white boys who are making racist chants. They're talking about building the wall and talking about how Native Americans are nothing but drunks and all this other stuff. So they were saying that stuff. Keep that in mind. But the main focus of the video was not only Mr. Phillips, but it's also this white kid, this white boy who is in his face. And this is just how it initially looked. So he's in his face and he's kind of like grinning, has a smirk on his face, kind of just the one that you just want to slap the shit off of, one of those kind of faces. So I'm not going to mention the kid's name on this show because he is a minor, and even though his name was made public, I'm not going to mention his name on the show. This took place in Washington, D.C., at some kind of anti-abortion rally because, of course, high school juniors, sophomores, whatever, are so concerned about abortion. Yeah. So that's why they were there. So fast forward a couple days after this happened, boy in the video who has the ignorant smirk on his face releases a statement and basically saying that this wasn't how it appeared to be. This isn't what y'all saw, is not what really happened. Okay, so I'm like, well, tell me what happened. So I read I didn't read his whole, but I guess he did like a 3-page letter. And he was basically saying that he and some of his classmates, they were being taunted. They were the ones being taunted by a group of black Hebrew Israelites. From the video that was eventually released and shown, yes, the black Hebrew Israelites, they were saying some crazy things towards these kids, but everybody else. They were talking about their Klan hats that they had on, those MAGA hats, which have openly replaced the hoods and skinheads. These MAGA hats have basically become the new Klan attire. They didn't do nothing, of course. They didn't do nothing. Of course, they weren't going to say anything to the black Hebrew Israelites. They weren't going to say nothing to them. So their crowd started getting bigger. And to try and diffuse the situation, they said that they were going to start doing their school chant. So that's what you see at the beginning of the video that was released. And then I guess things start getting heated again, but not between the white kids and the black Hebrew Israelites, because that's who they're mad at. Instead, they take their anger from being embarrassed and scared of these Hebrew Israelites out on these indigenous Native Americans who were trying to diffuse the situation and trying to make more light of the situation that was happening. They saw something tense going on and they wanted to calm it down. The smartass who wrote this letter, who's at the center of all this, he said he was the one trying to diffuse the situation. And that's why he just stood there and basically he didn't know what to do. Now, Mr. Phillips, when he first talked about this, he said he didn't realize that's what was happening, that the young guy was trying to diffuse the situation. He felt that he was there trying to block him from moving or whatever. But of course, Mr. Innocent, no, I was trying to diffuse the situation and he got up in my personal space. So of course we don't see how that happens, and it could have been what happened. But so of course in turn, they're going to blame the black people. They're going to blame the blacks for this initially starting. Which, not saying that the Hebrew Israelites weren't right, because they were coming at everybody who was basically coming at them. However, what's the excuse then, and what was the reason for your classmates taunting this elderly man? And not only just being an elderly man, but being an indigenous Native American. Y'all are up here talking about build the wall and that they're drunks and everything like that. So what is the excuse for that? Why was that needing to be said? You're not saying anything about that. So your excuse is bullshit. And of course now the media is jumping all on this little troll side and basically saying, well, this is what happened. And he's saying that what we saw was, and they're just going by that now. I'm not buying it. So a GM plant in Toledo, Ohio has nooses and racist words just written and placed all around the building. And thank you to the 2 black employees who brought this to our attention. So there's that. You know what? I mean, do I have to do this once again? Like, seriously, white people? And and this is really going to go to the white people who know racism still exists, but don't want to talk about it or don't want to acknowledge that it exists. And just know that we're not asking you, anyone, to apologize for it, but at least acknowledge it. That's all you have to do. Because in the words of Cory Booker, your silence is complicit. That's exactly what it is. So speak up. Tell people that are making these comments and doing these things and trying to play it off like it's funny and it's a joke. It is not. So I'm going to need y'all to get it together. A 51-year-old white man knocks out a 12-year-old black girl. Now, for me personally, I'm not going to get into this story because it's going to piss me off, but for me personally, I have always lived by the words of Malcolm X and his philosophy, violence for violence. So why didn't anyone jump his ass? All of y'all that were there, y'all should have jumped him and suffered the consequences later. The way he punched her was like he was fighting another dude. And that just shows you, I guarantee you he wouldn't have done that to a little white girl. Oh no, she could have been mouthing off to him all she wanted to or whatever, but he wouldn't have done that to a little white girl, no. And the 3 Chicago police officers who helped cover up the evidence in the Laquan McDonald murder were all three acquitted. So there's that too. And then they wonder why we got a problem with police officers. Because they can do this sneaky stuff and they will always get off with it. Not always, but pretty much majority of the time they will get off with it. So I guess it was supposed to make us feel better that the police officer who actually murdered Laquan McDonald, shooting him 16 times in the back, he was sentenced to only 8 years in prison. And he'll probably get time served or whatever. He won't do the whole 8 years. Okay. So Trump's punk ass did a speech Saturday night where basically he didn't acknowledge the federal workers who are without work, anything like that. He basically came up with a compromise for his wall, which is from 5.8 to 5.7 billion in 3-year extension for DACA residents. That's supposed to be the compromise. He didn't say this in the speech, but he said this a couple of days later, that he will shut down the government for a year until he gets his funding for the wall. Now, really? It is 31 days. It is over a month of this shutdown, this unnecessary shutdown. Someone needs to be a big boy or a big girl and step up to this fool, tell him to open the government, and in the meantime, you all can do your negotiating for border security. But $5.7 billion is way too excessive. Mitch McConnell, girl, they are out here looking for you. The people, the children, they are out here looking for you. They want to have a discussion with you, and you are nowhere to be found. How is the Senate Majority Leader such a scary ass? You are scared to talk to people who not only do you work with, but the people that you are screwing over. They said they've been to your offices, they've been to the Senate floor, and you are nowhere to be found. Your presence is nowhere. I don't understand. And back to the orange troll, he still hasn't spoke out against Congressman Stephen King for his racist remarks. He hasn't said a word. Not surprised there. He never speaks out against racist. He can speak out against everything else and everybody else, but he won't speak out against him. And of course he won't, because for one, he's a Republican, 2, he's white, and 3, he supports him. So that's all he needs. Sister Pence is still out here playing her role. Had the nerve to go on national television comparing Dr. King and his fight and sacrifice to what his master, to what Trump is trying to do, basically with this wall and cracking down on immigration. That's some nerve right there. That is some nerve, but that's how they operate. Rudy Giuliani. So he was still on TV throughout last weekend as well. And just on there just lying and just making everything worse. Just running that mouth just to be heard, just to be on television. That's all it is. He needed some attention, so now he's on television. But now this week, he has been backpedaling every comment that he's made, that he said himself, that is there, it's on video, that you have said certain things, but now you are backpedaling and trying to say what you actually meant. No, we're not playing this game with y'all. We are not doing it. And ISIS is over there still letting the girls know that she is still around. Last week, ISIS took responsibility for a suicide attack in Kenya that killed 21 people, including 5 Americans. But I thought ISIS was defeated. Isn't that what y'all's president said, that ISIS was okay. That's what I thought on there, bragging that ISIS is defeated and mission accomplished and all this other stuff. ISIS said, okay, I'm going to show you. You can't play around with these fools. He is truly putting our lives in danger, and it's really sad. And what's even more sad is that these elected officials don't even have our back. It's really sad. It's really sad, the state of the world that we're in, and all it took was for us to have a black president. That was all it took. And lastly, in politics, Trump's grimace-looking ass invited the 2019 NCAA football champion Clemson Tigers to the White House. First of all, why did y'all even go? That's number one. But, okay, whatever, y'all were there. And you were not only there, but you were there to, have your little dinner, whatever y'all do when, the champions are invited to the White House. But we haven't had many go in the last couple years. I wonder why. But since the government is shut down and a lot of the kitchen staff is furloughed, Trump decided to take upon himself to make this all about him like he does everything else. He decided to serve national champions, college students, a plethora of fast food. Now, they had all the Big Macs and chicken nuggets and French fries, whatever their little hearts wanted, they had right there. Now, here's my thing. It was bad enough that he served them fast food. Yet sadly, it was probably the most classy thing that has come out the White House in this term. Now, back to my question. The White House is in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is like any other major city, of course. There are tons of restaurants in that whole DMV area where you could have had a real dinner catered. You served them fast food and you were just so proud of yourself. And this fast food wasn't for them. This was for him, because it is well known that you love your KFC, you love your McDonald's. So this was for you. This was an excuse for you to, just get what you want. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, he had to make it about him and just how, I paid for this out of my own pocket and okay, whatever. But why does someone say that Sarah Sanders was standing back there looking like the Hamburglar? I about fell completely out. Now that was the funniest shit ever. So Cardi B dragged Tommy Lauren, or Laren, however the hell you say her last name, I really don't care. But she dragged her by her blonde, dry edges. I mean, Cardi had all the time for Tommy that day. So basically what happened was Tommy, of course, trolling, got on her Twitter, where they feel safe, and pretty much just said Cardi needs to stay in her place. That's basically what she said in a nutshell. Cardi, of course, is not the one, and she let her know and told her that she will dog walk her ass. I fell out just from that because, for one, we know she had no clue what dog walk meant. So that just blessed me right there. And of course, some other trolls decide to come at Cardi, and she let them know that I got time for you too. There are just some people who you just can't come for, okay? There are just certain people. And, Cardi just stays winning. She has a Pepsi commercial for the Super Bowl. She's been on here just gathering, letting y'all know that she has some sense. She has some intelligence. It's just her delivery. And I always thought that about her, even when she was on Love and Hip Hop New York. Just how she articulates herself. That's why people don't take her seriously. But if you really listen to her, she's actually very smart, and she says a lot of things that a lot of us are thinking. But anyway, so not only does she have the Pepsi commercial, but I read today from bscott.com that Cardi is also scheduled to do a Las Vegas residency. Now, Girlfriend's album hasn't been out a full year yet, and she is already asked to have a residency in Las Vegas. And that's not a bad thing. A lot of people look at it because a lot of older artists are having having residencies in Las Vegas, but call it what you want to. These people make coin, okay? When they have residences in Las Vegas, they make coin. So don't let that fool you. Let's talk about the Super Bowl entertainment real quickly. Now, I don't care about the Super Bowl. Of course, I want New England to lose because I just can't stand them. I don't like Tom Brady. He's a bad boy, but I don't like him. And, that's just how I feel about that. But can we just talk about the wackest halftime show that has graced the Super Bowl stage in probably quite a while? It's going to be headlined by Maroon 5 with Big Boy from Outkast and Travis Scott. I'm here for none of it. And Gladys Knight will be singing the national anthem. And you know what? I'm just going to leave it right there. Auntie Gladys is a legend. She's one of our elder legends. So I'm not going to go in on her, but I'm pretty sure that you all and probably feel my vibe on what I probably would say if you know me. Speaking, you know what? I'm not going to go there. So okay. Chrisette Michele attempts a comeback after performing at the Orange Devils inauguration. And you may remember Chrisette Michele, because they couldn't find any other black acts. So someone pulled her name out of a hat, obviously, because I know no one there, except for maybe Omarosa, had ever heard of Chrisette Michele. So she was asked to perform at the inauguration, and she accepted. Even after she saw the edges being dragged, wigs being pulled off of these other artists, men included, who were asked to perform at the inauguration, bowed out gracefully. But she wanted to do this as almost for the same reason as Gladys is making the excuse of wanting to do the national anthem, is because they feel like this will bring people together, because singing will bring everyone together. Okay. And there were some people who were commenting on these stories, and a lot of them were saying, well, how come you artists like Kanye gets a pass and, always so hard on women and all this other stuff? That had nothing to do with it. Kanye probably has more white fans than he has black fans. Let's just start right there. If you go to a Kanye West concert, it is predominantly white. It doesn't matter what city you're in. You go to a Kanye West concert, the crowd is predominantly white. Chrisette Michele, you go to one of her concerts, you may see one or two white people. Let's just keep it real. She is a true neo-soul R&B artist. Not too many white people get into that. It doesn't matter if you like R&B or not. You have to really have an understanding and appreciation to enjoy neo-soul music. Or you just had to be a true laid-back spirit to be able to enjoy neo-soul music. And Chrisette Michele is just not on the radar of that crowd. I'm sorry. I mean, let's just keep it all the way 100. So that was why she got it so hard. It didn't have anything to do with her being a woman. Plus, we've been wrote Kanye off. If any black person is still living for Kanye, that's your business. Go ahead and do you. Peter Thomas from Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I see she's still hanging around the set, even though she lives in, Charlotte now, running that sports bar or whatever, which good for you. You and your good girlfriend Cordell Stewart went in on that, and hey, I can't be mad at you. I heard it's really a nice place, so good for y'all. But however, Peter Thomas decided to do a video where he's telling dark-skinned black women to stop wearing blonde wigs. Now, Miss Petrina, just stop, girl. You're still bitter because you never got your peach, obviously. And you got some nerve with that beard on your face as white as the cocaine in the movie Blow to be talking about what color somebody should have on their body, what color they choose to wear. Bye, girl. Goodbye. You're always telling some woman what they need to do and always in women's business. I have never seen you come at any men like that, and that just shows what kind of man that you are. But I digress. And lastly, dear Future. Future has been in his feelings lately. He has been promoting his new album, which I haven't heard yet, and I do like his music, so I will eventually listen to it, but Future's been all in his feelings. He came at Jay-Z for basically mentioning him in one of his songs from his last album, pretty much just saying that, he knows that he messed up with Beyonce and that he didn't want to end up like Future. And that's not the lyrics. I can't even remember what song it is. That was the gist of it. So, of course, he had to speak on that and just saying, Jay-Z should have his back and all this other stuff. He's saying he don't want to be like you. He don't want to be a cheater with 50,000 baby moms. Jay-Z is a little older than you, but, well, maybe a lot older than you. What's wrong with saying that? But I can understand how you could take it a certain way. Okay. He's also mad at Wendy Williams because Wendy Williams, when she was on her show, she posted a picture of all 6 of Future's baby moms. And he said that, there are a couple of them who don't want to be associated as being one of Future's baby moms, even though they are. Obviously, they don't want to be in the limelight and not in the limelight that way. But girl, okay. And lastly, Future goes at Russell Wilson and says that he's not a man because he let Ciara tell him what to do. To me, that's not being a man. That's being a partner. That's being someone who believes that in a relationship, your partner is as equal as you are. But you don't understand that, and you're still mad and pissed at Ciara because she wasn't like your other baby moms who just know how to play their part, but Ciara wasn't that type of girl. Ciara already had her own money and fame. She was her own person. And not saying they weren't either, but that you can probably control and run things with these other mothers of your children because you got the money. And not only that, Russell is also raising your son because you're one of those fathers who feel that I don't have to be there, but as long as I'm providing financially, then I'm a great father. No, because anybody can do that. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make you a man either. It doesn't. So Russell Wilson is all man because he is doing the right thing by his family and has even taken on the role of pretty much full-time dad to your son. And you can't handle it. That's what it is. Because you know eventually little Future is going to be torn and probably won't have much time for you when he gets older and realizes the things that you said about his mother and now his stepfather. Just leave them alone. Just quit coming at them. It doesn't make any sense for you to keep doing that because they're not thinking about you. They don't ever say anything about you. The last shady thing Sierra did to you was when you were nominated for some, what was it, the Grammys or whatever, or BET Awards, something. She just didn't say your name. Now that was funny and probably the ultimate shade. I don't think she should have did that. However, you say anything you want to about her, so there's that. And lastly, about Future and Russell Wilson and all this other stuff, why do people call Russell Wilson corny? I can't stand that. They're like, oh, I love him. He's so corny. He's a good dude, but he's so corny. Why is he so corny? Because he shows love and appreciation for his woman, because he actually isn't afraid to show that he can be romantic to his woman. And that's a shame that in this day and age, women think that a man doing those things is corny. I don't understand, but times have changed and obviously I'm not with it. So, well, that's all in entertainment news. And lastly, in this week's show, I'm going to do a little story time / health segment all in one. And I'm probably going to have to break this up into more than one part because I'm going to talk about my weight loss journey and why I decided to have gastric surgery. I want to get into that because I am getting a lot of questions from people who are wanting to pursue it or they know someone who's wanting to pursue weight loss surgery. And the first thing I'm going to do is answer a question that I got, which I was really excited about that. So I got emailed a question from somebody. So between this question that I got asked through the email and other people hitting me up asking me questions, between that and the new season of My 600-Pound Life, which I just live for that show, people don't understand why we like it. It's almost like what I'm trying to do. You don't have to be 600 pounds. You don't have to be overweight to realize that there is a root cause in some of the things that you're going through and why you do what you do. You don't have to be a hoarder to appreciate hoarders. Shows like that. You don't have to be on drugs to appreciate, a show about addicts. So not only do I think it's just a great show, but Dr. Now just gathers the children. He does not play, and I just love him to death. Anyway, let's get to this question. So the email says, I really want to get weight loss surgery. I've been looking more into gastric bypass because you will lose more weight and much faster. I'm at least 200 pounds overweight from where I should be. Your honest opinion, gastric bypass or gastric sleeve? First of all, congratulations on taking the step to even just get started on this journey, because I don't know how far you are into it, but it is going to be a journey. Now, my opinion on either gastric bypass or gastric sleeve, I would suggest the sleeve. And if you don't know what gastric sleeve is, a lot of people think that it's a sleeve that you put over they put over your stomach, almost like the lap band, where they put that band around your stomach. But no, they think that the sleeve is where they put a sleeve over your stomach. And when I first heard about it, I thought so too. I was like, well, what is that going to do? But what it is, basically, of course, they just cut your stomach much smaller. Of course, it's close to 80% of your stomach is gone. And after it, your stomach will be in the shape of an arm. So they cut it basically, it resembles an arm. So that's why they call it the sleeve. And gastric bypass is pretty much the same thing, except now they do cut your stomach very small. However, there's a lot of rewiring. That's what I call it, because they're moving this intestine from here and there and, all this other stuff. And I just feel it's too much on your body if you truly don't need it. Now, my surgeon, he only performs 85 to 90% of his gastric surgeries are the gastric sleeve. He will only do, and this is what a lot of surgeons are doing now who do weight loss surgery, they're only doing gastric bypass if you have serious health issues, and it's like serious to the point of life or death. And I know some of y'all are probably saying, well, if you're obese, morbidly obese, isn't that life or death? To an extent, yeah, definitely. However, bypass is such a serious in-depth surgery that I would not recommend it unless you are at a point where you need to lose hundreds of pounds, like in months, okay? And even on my 600-pound life, he really only performs the sleeve. I haven't seen Dr. Now do a gastric bypass in years on the show. Not saying he doesn't, but I haven't seen it. And unfortunately, the bypass is known to cause lingering health issues for quite some time, possibly for the rest of your life. And it doesn't happen to everybody, but it's more possible to happen if you have bypass than the sleeve. For the sleeve, the recovery time is also much quicker. It's a less invasive surgery. For me, I only have 3 incisions in my stomach and they're real small. And I was in no pain at all. I didn't take any pain medication at all. I was just out of it, but we'll talk about that. We'll get there. We'll talk about that later on when I talk about my surgery, when I get to that point. But now they told me originally, and I know people that have done this, that after the surgery, you could possibly go home either that day or the next day. Also with the sleeve, you can also go back to work within a week or 2. Now that didn't happen to me, but I'll get into why. With bypass, you're going to be going through a lot. The recovery time is a lot longer. From what I hear, there is pain because they're not just cutting into your stomach, but as I mentioned before, they're rerouting organs and intestines and all this other stuff. So keep that in mind. As for losing weight fast, either one, you're going to lose a lot of weight fast. Yes, with the bypass, you do lose more weight than you would with the sleeve in the same period of time. However, with the sleeve, you're going to lose a lot of weight too. So don't just focus on that, because even with weight loss surgery, it doesn't matter how fast you lose weight, how much weight you lose, you can still gain weight back. So keep that in mind as well, as you will hear over and over again throughout your journey and afterwards, which is still the journey. Weight loss surgery isn't magic. You still have to work at it. So don't ever forget that. With both, you will have diet restrictions, as you should accept, because going through all of this, why would you want to jeopardize it? In saying that, the bypass is a little bit more restricted. Bypass patients, they have more foods and even normal things that you would think would be okay to eat. They have more issues afterwards. There's more limitations with that. And I know it's not all about food and what you can eat and should not eat, because there's so much more to it. You're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to take vitamins for the rest of your life. Regardless of what surgery you get, it's a complete lifestyle change. Trust me on this. Now, I will say this with the sleeve. When the sleeve was first explained to me, it was pretty much explained as a permanent appetite suppressant. So it's like you're permanently on Adipex. With either the sleeve or bypass, it's not going to stop your cravings. It's not going to stop things that you may want to eat. With the bypass, if you eat something that you shouldn't have had, the consequences are horrible. With the sleeve, you can still suffer consequences, but it's not as bad. Now with the sleeve, I can pretty much eat what I want. I just choose not to. And a lot of patients who are successful choose not to. Now, you said you're about 200 pounds overweight from where you should be. Now, I was about that. I'm going to keep it real. We're keeping it real, honesty all around. If you do everything right, and you may slip up a few times, and that's not a problem at all. Just get back on track. Almost a year and a half, I've lost almost 150 pounds, and I'm only about 30 pounds from where I should be. And I haven't done everything right. I haven't done everything perfect, which no one's going to do anything perfect, but I've slipped up. I just got back on track. And not only when it comes to eating, even with my vitamins, I get so tired of taking them every day and multiple times a day that there have been times where I just said, I'm not taking them today. And that's a huge mistake. So you can lose that excess weight with the sleeve in a short period of time. You're not going to lose it as fast as you would with the bypass, but you're going to lose it. So if you don't have any health issues that are life or death, and you're pretty much able to get around on your own and all that good old stuff, definitely do the sleeve. Of course, you will talk this over with whatever surgeon you choose, whatever program you go through, but I guarantee you, wherever you go, they're going to suggest the sleeve, unless there's like really something to the point where it's like, okay, we got to get these 200 pounds off in less than 6 months. So that's my opinion. I would definitely go for the sleeve. It's healthier. longer, there's less recovery time, and the restrictions aren't as bad for going into this huge lifestyle change. I'm going to get into very little of my weight loss journey today. I'm just going to basically talk about why I decided to get it, and the next few episodes I will go more in depth in the background of weight issues and health issues, all that good old stuff. To be plain and simple, I was tired of being overweight. The thing was, I still very active. I didn't eat much, and it was just so frustrating that I would lose a lot of weight and then gain it right back, and I had no idea why. And speaking before about one of my favorite shows, My 600-Pound Life, I would look at those people and I would catch myself being like, dang, how did you let yourself get to that point? You know, where you're bedridden, you just can't do anything, you can't move. And even though I was nowhere near 600 plus pounds, I realized that I wasn't any better than they are. You see people on there who are like enablers for them and, you know, think that they aren't as bad because they're still mobile and they're not as big as that person. But to me, overweight is overweight. If you're overweight for your size, then there's something that needs to be done. I went for years throughout my entire life where my weight would fluctuate. As I mentioned before, I didn't really eat a lot, you know, and I'm seriously saying that. And, you know, people would look at me like, well, that weight didn't just come from nowhere. Obviously it did, because I wasn't the type of person who sat around and snacked a lot. I didn't grow up on fast food like that. It was a serious treat. And I know those aren't the only ways that you can gain weight. It just gets to a point where it becomes out of control. I went years without knowing that I had an underlying issue with my stomach that was causing all of this weight to just keep building and building. Yeah, if I focused and did what I had to do, I could lose the weight. But if what wasn't taken care of in my stomach, it was going to make me keep gaining weight. See what I'm saying? So I had to find out that there was something else going on besides just me gaining weight and not knowing why. So back in 2009, I got real sick and I had no idea why. I just would constantly I couldn't keep anything down for a long period of time, and it was to the point where it was very scary. So eventually I did go get it checked out and they couldn't find anything. Of course, I was just told, like so many other people are, just by someone just looking at you, even a medical professional, well, you know, maybe you should consider weight loss surgery, or, you know, you just need to go on a diet, all these other things that, common sense. I know this, but I'm trying to tell you something ain't right. You may be the medical expert, but I'm the expert on me and my body. And I know at the time I was in this body for 29, almost 30 years. So I knew something wasn't right. Even back in my childhood, my weight would go up and down. I remember like probably my freshman year in high school, still a little chunky, but I got, small. I lost weight from even 8th grade into 9th grade. And then probably maybe 10th or 11th grade, I started picking back up weight. And the thing was, I played basketball like all year round, and I was just always very active, and I had no idea why. And it was so frustrating. I just felt like it was holding me back. Now, one thing about me, I was never insecure. So that really helped. And that was probably one of the reasons why back then I didn't really look into it. I knew it was an issue, but I didn't really want to look into it. However, fast forward 13, 14 years later, I started noticing that there was an issue going on. And especially when I just got sick out of nowhere and it just dragged on forever, I started getting all these pains in my stomach. It was just so weird and freaked me out. And they say they don't see anything. They can't find anything. So that went on for a few months. And not long after that, I started feeling better. Now, mind you, around this time, I was in a job that I could not stand. So I was thinking that maybe it was just stress. I was starting to lose a lot of weight again. And this weight up and down thing has gone on my whole life. People wouldn't believe if they knew me from even just high school. When I was in my late early to mid 20s, I lost so much weight that if you wouldn't have seen me in a few years, 2 years, whatever, you would have probably thought I was sick, which I was, but you know what I'm talking about, like a sickness where it's very severe. So when I tell you my weight fluctuated, it seriously fluctuated. A couple years after that, I started gaining weight back. back. And then like the next year I started losing again. It was just too much back and forth. And then by the time I got sick right before I turned 30, I was just like, okay, I got to see what's going on. You go to the doctor, they tell you they can't find anything. Then not long after that, you just start feeling better and you're losing weight. So I just didn't even think about it anymore. I shouldn't say I didn't think about it, but I didn't worry about pursuing it. Even when I went to another doctor and just had my regular checkup or whatever, I never even questioned it. And then I would say maybe around 2014, 2015, so at this time I'm 34, 35 years old, I started gaining weight uncontrollably. It was bad. And the thing with me where I really first started noticing it was, of course, my clothes stopped fitting, but also that I have arthritis in both of my knees, which I've had since I was a kid. The pain was so unbearable. That was when I knew that something was terribly wrong. But the weight came on so quickly, I didn't even really have time to process it all. Everything just started happening. Around this time also, I had applied for the job that I'm at now. I was waiting forever to get into that job. And I was at a job currently that I hated, and I knew I was so close to getting out of there. It really just started stressing me out. And I thought that's where the excessive weight gain was coming from. But I was like, damn, ain't nobody this stressed out, to put on close to, I'm telling you, within probably 2 to 3 years, I probably put on well over 100 pounds. That's not normal for anybody. I just could not believe that I let myself get to that point. So of course you just get all down and depressed and everything, and started being more reclusive and just not really wanting to deal with anybody. I've always had anger issues, but now my temper was getting out of control. I would just snap at the drop of a dime. It was just getting bad, and I was just becoming someone who I really, truly didn't like. I eventually got the job that I had been waiting on. This was early 2015, but then around this time also, my grandfather is real sick, and this just came out of nowhere. It was just like 6-7 months before, he seemed like he was in perfect health and everything. We started noticing little things, but just like, he's almost 80 years old. He's not going to be the same as he was. Things are going to change. And he just kept getting worse and worse. And by the summertime, it was just like, we didn't know what was going to happen. He was getting sick every day. And by August, he was gone. That too really didn't help to me being stressed out and feeling like, okay, I'm obviously stressed. I obviously got some issues going on. However, I'm not a stress eater, so I still wasn't eating a lot. Honestly, my appetite is decreased since I've had my surgery, of course, not by much. Trust me when I tell you that. Like, I was able to eat maybe a little bit more than I can now before I just felt like I was going to get sick. So as time went on, maybe like a year went by, and I just kept feeling worse and much worse. Plus, there were things that I wanted to do outside of work and, all these other things that I just wanted to pursue, and I just felt like time was passing me by. Now I'm in my late 30s, and I just felt like I hadn't accomplished anything. Yes, I have a good job, but what else do I have to show for it? So we're still in 2016, and I was at the point that summer where I was just like, okay, I'm not going through another summer like this. I'm not going through another year like this. I found a doctor who is still my doctor to this day. I love him to death. He's such a good man. He really listened to me. Now, when I first met him, he didn't say anything about it. When I talked about how, I gained so much weight in such a short period of time, how I've had weight issues my entire life where my weight would go up and down and I would lose like 60 pounds and then gain 70. He even at that moment, he was even like, okay, there's more going on here than you just gaining weight. There's something deeper, so we have to get to the bottom of this. Catch. Immediately, I just had this instant connection with him because I knew that this was going to be it. I just had this feeling, and I never had that before when I had discussed my weight with the doctor. He never mentioned weight surgery. He never mentioned dieting, any of that stuff. He wanted to find out what was going on. He was like, this isn't normal, not for anybody. One thing about me is I have a small frame. So there was no way that even if I ate like crazy, I would be able to gain that much weight in that period of time. We needed to find out what was going on. He told me this is going to take some time. This is going to cost you probably a little bit of money, but it'll be worth it in the end. I was all for it. I was like, hey, whatever needs to be done, let's do it. He set me up with a couple ultrasounds to go get done. At those ultrasounds, they found that my stomach was pretty much filled with ulcers. Majority of it. Let me backtrack real quick. My initial reason to go see him was that I finally was like, okay, I'm just going to go pursue weight loss surgery. So that was why I initially wanted to go see this doctor. Anyway, had 2 ultrasounds done, and it just showed so much was going on with my stomach. So pretty much about 70% of my stomach was just messed up. It was basically deteriorated, and we didn't know the reason for it, but it was just something that had gone on for years that was undiagnosed. So every time I would eat something, it would just sit on my stomach for such a long time. And when I stopped eating pork and I didn't eat beef as much and stuff like that, of course, the first thing Black people think is, oh, you one of them, you don't want it, all this other stuff. No, I couldn't digest it. That's what it was. So whatever I ate, no matter how small it was, I could have, let's just give an example of a small side salad from McDonald's, one of them real small ones. I could eat that and feel like I had a steak and potato, like just that feeling that you get when you just indulge in all those carbohydrates and stuff, just where it just feels like something is just sitting on your stomach. Now, there were certain days where I could eat just fine and I didn't have any issues, but majority of the time, everything I ate just sat on my stomach. And this is why I drank so much. And I'm talking about just liquids, not alcohol, which at the time I did drink alcohol, but that's a whole nother story. So after these ultrasounds were done, we got the results back, found out what was going on. And mind you, this only took about a month and a half. So I'm like, okay, what do we do for me to get rid of this? Obviously, my stomach is jacked up. It's pretty much, majority of it is dead. So what do I need to do? He told me that I was going to need to have bariatric surgery. Well, I'm thinking this is coming full circle because this is what I originally came to him about. So he sets me up with a doctor out of Mount Carmel, and we just bonded immediately as well. Very nice guy, honest, one of the best in the field at this. Come to find out, they were frat brothers. My primary care doctor and the surgeon that I was going to, they were frat brothers. So it does pay sometimes who it does come in handy. So fast forward to everything else, we just started getting into the conversation of bariatric surgery, and he pretty much said that I can perform an entrectomy on you, which is very similar to the gastric sleeve. There's no rerouting of intestines. There's no moving any of that stuff. Basically, what I'm going to do is cut off that portion of the stomach that is messed up. And you will have the same outcome if you do everything right as someone who had the gastric sleeve surgery. So pretty much he was doing a sleeve on me. He just wasn't removing as much stomach that he would on a sleeve patient. So that's why it was a little different surgery. When I heard that, mind you, I had never had surgery before ever. Not even when I broke a bone, I didn't have any kind of surgery. And I was very clumsy as a child. I broke my left leg, I broke an ankle, but I never had to have surgery. I was nervous, but I was excited. It was a good nervous. I didn't get really super nervous until right before the surgery, like a couple days before. But however, we'll get there later. So I want to wrap this up in just discussing this, but that was the point where I got to where the surgeon, my primary care doctor, and myself worked together and were able to get this done and find out what the cause of a lingering health issue that I had for years since I was a child. We were able to get to the point where found out what it was and how we were going to treat it. But now the fun began. I had to go through the bariatric program, which I was more than willing to do because, of course, that's what I was originally wanting to do. I didn't realize it was going to be as spiritual, educational, just as life-changing even before the surgery that I thought it would be. I was just like, okay, I'll go get a sleep study done. I'll go, get this done and that done, whatever's required on this list, and then I'll have my surgery. There was so much more to this. and I can't wait to share the rest with you next show. So that is our show for this week. I want to thank you again, as always, for tuning in and listening to episode 7. If you haven't yet, please get caught up on those other episodes. You can listen to them on my website at DannieBSpeaks.com. You can also catch up on a lot of blogs there. I have a lot of stories and blogs posted on that website as well, and I promise I will get back into writing. This podcast is just a lot more work than I thought it would be, but I'm starting to get the hang of it and starting to get everything down, so hopefully it won't be as time consuming going forward. But you could also listen to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spotify, and Stitcher. And I'm still trying to work out the details and trying to figure out what I want to do about SoundCloud, but you can at least listen to, I think the first 3 or 4 episodes are on there if you like to use SoundCloud. And don't forget, YouTube will have the same exact podcast. It just won't have the background music that I do on the other formats. If you have any questions, feedback, concerns, would you like me to promote something or somebody, like me to endorse something or somebody, please hit my email up at DannieBSpeaks@gmail.com. We'll work something out. I'll get back to you. All feedback, all commentary, whatever is so highly appreciated. And I appreciate you all for listening once again. So until next time, be blessed and be loved. Peace.